Hi everybody, welcome back to part 2 of carving an elephant, and we're going to go and take this out in between the ear and the trunk. Right from the beginning, we're going to get our knife and we're going to try and make him look a little more like an elephant. So what we're going to do here is, I'm going to take my knife, make a stop cut down along the ear here, and the same as we always do, we make a removal cut after that, okay? And we're just going to try and remove this wood in between the ear and the trunk. Now this is much easier to do if I was holding the carving. You could use a flat chisel for this, or you could use a gouge even. Okay, so whatever you have, I'm going to try and do it with my knife while it's in the vise. But a lot of times if I'm going to have to use two hands like this and it's in a vise, I would probably use a chisel and take that wood out. Okay, so just make sure that you do a stop cut around that trunk and then push the wood into the stop cut, and the same on the other side. Stop cut around the ear and then push the wood up and under to make that ear stick out. Okay. It's a lot easier to do if I had this in my hand, like I said, but we'll wing it, and I'll at least give you the idea of what you should do. And we got to do it on the other side. And I would just keep shaping my egg as I go. You know, I go from one side to the next and get all that rough wood off. Make sure you get a good stop cut in there, and then just cut up to it. You want that trunk to stick out and all the wood underneath it to be lower. Same with the ears. And don't worry about messing up the ears a little bit. We can always recut that. You can even do this with power. It's probably a lot easier to do with, say, maybe a cut-saw bit, but a lot of you guys want to learn how to do it with hand tools, and this is how you would do that. You could use different hand tools for it. Like I said, a chisel works very good for this, a flat chisel. Or you just rotate the piece in your hand and do it all with your knife. But any line you want to stay, make sure you make a stop cut first, and then do your removal cut. See, there's a stop cut there. The removal cut takes the chip out. Okay. Then I'm going to go around and I'm going to do all this and try and clean that up and get all that done. Now over here by the ear, same thing. If you make a little stop cut around it first, and then slide your knife up to it and get some wood out from underneath that to make the ear stick out. So take your time, wear a glove. That's how you do that. Now if you're uncomfortable with the knife, like I said, you can always use a flat chisel or one of the gouges that comes in your flex cut set, or whatever set that you purchased. Okay, and I'm going to go around and try to use the gouge. Since I have this in a vise, I'm going to take a lot of that wood out. Now when I do get up to the top by the ears and stuff, it's probably going to break them up a little bit, but I'm not worried about that because I'll just cut my lines. Right now I'm trying to get that wood down so we can have our features stand out, like the trunk and the ears. So it's really not of concern to me. It's just a little easier to do than trying to do the whole thing with the knife, because like I said, with the knife you really want to be rotating the piece in your hand. It's a lot easier to do. So, and at the moment in front of the camera I don't really have a flat chisel on me, or I'll be using that probably, so I'll use the gouge. It's not really going to matter because I'm still wasting wood here, and that's what you call this. I'm wasting away wood that I don't need. Okay, so as long as I can get it off, I can always clean it up with my knife or chisel later. Okay, so we're just going to go around and get all of that out, and then we'll clean it up with our knife and other tools, whatever we have to do. You can even clean it up with the Dremel if you want, and the cut-saw bit, the cut-saw extreme, for instance, would take this down really fast. It'd make a lot of dust with the cottonwood bark, but it's still, any tool that you can get wood off with, use. This is not in stone, anything. Okay? except for the actual stop and removal cut, so you can use whatever tools you want to waste away wood, you know. Here we're trying to do it with hand tools, and it's in a vise, so I'm just giving you ideas and trying to do it myself when there are easier ways. Okay, but if you want to do it with hand tools, like I said, when you had a glove on, you could just be holding this piece in your hand, and it's real easy to just turn it upside down and then make your removal cuts real nice. Okay, now let's go up here towards the eye. Let's push that up a little bit. We don't want it to stick out too far, so we're going to try and smooth this down. And take it down a little bit in between the eyebrows there. And I'll keep going around with my knife and cleaning this up. And taking more and more wood out until I get the effect I'm looking for, and I want that trunk to stand out pretty good, and the ears to kind of stick out just a little bit, not too much. Okay, I want those to stick out a little bit more than underneath them. Okay, yeah, see that on the sides? Now down here, since this is still attached, I'm going to have to cut it off. But right now, let me sand all this up and see where I'm at. Smooth it out some. And I'm going to have to take that head down. It's a little bit too high for me. I don't really like it. I think it'll look better if the head wasn't as high up here, so we'll probably cut that down. Okay, there we go here. And on the bottom, I'm going to have to cut that too. It won't be as long as it is. I'm going to shorten this one piece. That'll be a little bit later. You know, we'll cut it off when we're ready. Make sure you brush after sanding or hit it with the air compressor. You do not want to run your tools through that dust from sanding, and the grit from the sandpaper will definitely dull them, and you'll need this stroppy knife again. Or your gouges. Okay, it's not looking too bad. It looks a little bit high and chunky up here, and I'm going to recut my line a little bit too, and make sure those eyes are set in pretty good. Now let's take our V-tool and really make sure that we get a bottom lid cut in there. So we're going to go beneath that top cut that we had and make 2 new grooves with our V-tool for eyelids. There we go. And we can put eyes underneath that. A lot of times I like to make my stop cut even after the V-tool, and then I'll take the wood out from underneath to make those eyelids stand out. Okay, so take your detail knife and run it through that cut you just made with your V-tool. And then come underneath it and push the wood up and into that stop cut. The idea here is to make room for eyes, so we're going to have to take wood out from underneath that with our knife or a gouge. I'm just going to slide my knife across there and try and blend that all towards the corner. I want to take a good enough amount out so I can actually place an eye in there. So we don't want like really high cheeks or anything underneath that eye. We want to make sure we have enough room to carve the eye. So that's the purpose for taking this off here. Just kind of blend it over into the trunk and into the side of the face. Got to re-stop cut to get more off, and then you do another removal cut. That's what you do. After a while, you'll get used to how much wood you're going to need to take off. You could make these really deep. I could make them not so deep. It's going to be personal preference. Let's come down here and clean this up with our knife, try and round those sharp corners off. Constantly re-stop cutting when you're using a knife, because you want to keep those lines. Right? I don't want to just keep carving and then not restock cut my trunk before I remove wood like this, for instance, because eventually I'll just carve my trunk away. So keep reinforcing those lines with your knife or whatever tool you're using before you take more wood out. And again, push up towards the ears and down into the trunk. Now he's starting to work his way around and it looks pretty good. Underneath here we're going to have to put some feet eventually. Right, now around here, I think anyway, is about where we're going to be putting his tusks. So I'll get an idea about where I want to put those. I'll make some circles here for now and see. I might want to raise these or lower these. Yeah, it might be a little bit low. I don't know if I want to go higher or not with that. So we'll see later. I'm just trying to give myself an idea of where I want to put those. And those will carve separate. Okay, let's go back up to the eyes here. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw in the bottom part with a marker. We're just going to connect that lid corner to corner with the U-shaped line. Just like that. Now we'll go back to our B tool. And we'll cut those out. Be careful when you get up to the top of that eyelid. You don't want to break it. Okay. And try to get a little deep in the corner there. Same on this side. That's all you want to do for now. To the other side. Make sure they're about even and look symmetrical, unless you're going for a certain expression. But for now, we're trying to make these both the same, or close to the same anyway. Okay, now I'm going to come over here to the corner, and I'm going to make a V-shaped cut. I'm going to push it in, make a little V, and then remove that chip. 1, 2, and go over to the corner and pop that little triangle chip out there. That'll set that eye in a little bit so we can round them off and it'll look more like an eyeball. Got to do that on both sides. You want to get shadow in the corner, so push your knife in there, go up to the top, push it in again, make sure they're connecting and making a V, and come over and push into that V and pop that chip out. One more time, push in on the bottom, push in on the top, and take the chip out. You should have a little bit of shadow there. Okay, pick any chips out, careful of your eyelids. And we're going to try and round that eyeball down and into our stop cut that we made with our V-tool. And this is a process when you're starting to learn eyes that most people have trouble with. So just take your time, take very small light cuts, and try and kind of round the eyeball, try and keep it a little high in the center, and round it downwards and upwards underneath that lid, and from side to side. So you have two little balls there, or mouths, that we can form our eyes out of. So it's not something that you have to rush, it's something that you do have to practice so you're not breaking a bunch of wood out. And like I said, if you're holding the carving, you can rotate it, it makes it a lot easier. But it's always good to have practice and do a bunch of eyes with your knife, because then when you're doing them with hand tools, you'll get the idea of how you should have to make cuts with a power tool, what kind of cuts that you want. It's just a matter of having the right tools to do it. I think that's the most confusing part about power tools, is which bit to use for such things. Okay. Now we can have those ears a little bit longer, so I'm going to draw a line here. end here, and we'll try to set those in a little bit more. And let's figure out about how high we want to make his head here. Maybe about there. A little bit higher than that, maybe, but I don't like his forehead being so high. So we're going to take that down too. But for now, let's run our knife through those. Let's stop cut. Both sides of that. And be very careful if you're close to the eye like I am on this side. You don't want to take big pieces of your eye away with your removal cut. Okay. Just trying to set that face in a little bit. So remove the wood on this side. And then we'll have to blend from the inside into that stop cut. Take some of that out, get that shadow. Go to the outside here. Take that out. Back to the inside. And push into that V we made. Trying to frame his face so it goes underneath his ear a little bit. So like I said, from the inside you're pushing into that line, and from the outside you're doing the same. Okay? And that sets his face into the wood a little bit and makes those ears stand out a little bit. Face is still a little bit high. I'm probably going to take that down with a gouge. And I think on the bottom here, I'm going to try and make this a little bit shorter, because he's kind of getting skinny at the bottom, so I want to keep him kind of fat and rounded and egg-shaped. So all this down here will come off, and above the line will be our actual elephant. And I'll have to mess with that and try to shape it a little bit. And we're going to have to come up with some kind of feet too, so I'll probably adjust these as I cut and carve, but for now I'm going to try and keep some room to make just 2 little half circles like this, and we'll put some feet in on this guy. So he'll be sitting kind of flat on the bottom so we can stand him up. I might have to move that one foot over a little bit. But that's what the plan's going to be for the carve for this guy, is to get feet and to shorten him down so he's kind of short and squatty. You don't want him long and skinny, that's for sure. All this wood's got to come out under the trunk, and I can redraw those. I was just showing you guys what we're going to do. But again, it's still a little bit too high, so take your knife or whatever tool you're using and get that wood down. Make sure that you're keeping everything clean and symmetrical. Try and keep your egg shape. And we'll shape him as we go and round him off. Now maybe I can draw a little bit better and get some feet here. Let me see. Maybe over here. We'll redraw our bottom line, see if we can make him look a little more symmetrical. Still have wood to take off, so he's not going to look too keen at the moment. But all we're going to do is make 2 lumps here that stick out to insinuate some feet on him. As you can see, he's still not symmetrical. The left side, well, his right side is actually going to need some work, so I can taper him down and make it look even. But that's the idea we're going for. Let's go up to the head here. That head's definitely way too high. So I'm going to take my rough out knife and I'm going to start taking a lot of this off. Because I want that to get carved down to the point where he just doesn't look so tall up top. I don't really like that look. So I'm going to keep going around. Again, this is hard to do when it's in the vise because I got to kind of walk around the vise. And I'm going cross grain here. Not as easy as it looks. Now you could take your Dremel and a flex cut bit and just shave this right down. not a flex cut, a Cutzall bit, I'm sorry. But I'm using my rough out knife here, and when I go cross grain, when you have something rounded off like that, you'll find it gets a little bit tough, but it can be done. Just take your time. I'm going to keep rounding it with my knife till I get the effect that I want. Just keep your fingers away from that knife. Like I said, this is a little bit harder than just going with the grain, but it's not impossible. Try not to break your carving, that's all. If you find it's chipping out way too much, you know, switch up and use a different tool. Or hold it in your hand and work around the carving. Carve it into a point and then slowly shave it down. Trying to keep it rounded. Okay, I'm going to stop the video here. I don't want it to be too long. Join me for part 3 in the next video, and we'll continue with our elephant. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.